Landon, I got plenty of stuff. I'm sure Kevin does as well that we want to unpack here with you. So we'll let you take it away. Set us up here because Netflix obviously growing. Is it enough? PR issues, lack of new content? Are people still as excited about Netflix as they always are?
Sure. So, I mean, this is a company that I personally love. Our data has loved for a long time. Very bullish long term on Netflix. However, as Kevin mentioned, they're about 10% off their all-time highs. I wish they weren't because I do think that we may see a soft quarter coming, just based on purchase intent. When you look at that chart, people talking about subscribing to Netflix for the first time. It is a little bit softer than you would expect. Now, of course, there was a massive bump. And here on this chart, you can see the 90-day moving average of purchase intent is that green line, and the stock chart is in that sort of gray line. Massive bump around quarantine when people are locked in. Of course, they're going to start subscribing and get into streaming for the first time. But that, of course, normalized, and now it's actually pulling back a little bit. Some of that has to do with a bit of a flash in the pan, cancel boycott, outrage type thing that we can talk about later. But some of it has to do with just a lack of new content. I know that Witcher and Stranger Things are big drivers, and they've paused production on both of those shows, and so it's getting a little bit frustrating for people. Incidentally, the happiness around Netflix is not great. It's not horrible. It's 73%, which is actually pretty good overall. But when you compare it to HBO, Disney, even Peacock, those are all higher. And so a little concerning there with Netflix, but I think really it comes down to the net new ads, which, you guys talked about it. They went from 15 in quarter one to 10 in quarter two, and now quarter three is looking around 2 or 3 million net new ads. And I would agree with that number. We've got quarter three at negative 11% on quarter over quarter when you talk about purchase intent. So it's down quite a bit. And the current quarter that started in October 1st, which they will not be reporting on, but they may, hint at, is actually down 18% quarter over quarter. So it is continuing to move down. A little bit of concern about potential softness on this upcoming report from Netflix.
Yeah, Landon, my question to you is this. The 15 to 10 to 2 to 3 that we were talking about, can that be negated by a price increase, right? And some other way to become more profitable? Because I listened to your comment about no new production and no new shows coming on. But correct me if I'm wrong, that might be industry-wide, right? That might be HBO, that might be Disney, that might be all the television stations. That could be rampant throughout the industry, not having any new content. But what's the biggest thing that we should be watching for? Could a price increase that they already just did in Canada, could that negate the softer subscription numbers?
Well, sure, of course. And, that's a key thing is that we're talking about people they're talking about adding the subscription, right? We're not talking about people going into a store and buying something one time. They're paying month after month after month. And they have a huge retention rate. I mean, Netflix is an extremely popular, high quality product that people basically just don't cancel. And so Netflix obviously is going to try to find that perfect curve of where they can maximize revenue by slightly increasing price. And what does that do to churn? They've got to explore that, and they may as well, bump it up a buck or two. And of course, that could be a huge driver of revenue, and they'll have to see what cancellations look like. But yes, it is industry-wide as far as production goes. But I know that Disney's coming out with Mandalorian season 2 very soon. I think that's getting a ton of buzz. And so it is possible to create new shows. And, people really are going to have a hard time just justifying things if they don't come out with their favorite show. And they may stick around for Stranger Things the next season if it takes a little while longer than normal. But people are fickle, and they may get a little frustrated. Now, one of the things that we did look at was the scandal around the recent film that a lot of people did not like. They talked about canceling. And one of the things that we do at LikeFolio is try to determine, is this a flash in the pan, or is this something that sticks around? So it kind of reminds me of the Cambridge Analytica scandal at Facebook and the Snapchat interface change. So between those two, the Cambridge Analytica scandal at Facebook was a flash in the pan. People talked big time about canceling, but they went away really quickly. The Snapchat interface change was a huge one that stuck around that hurt Snapchat long term. This one appears to be more towards the flash in the pan. Got a huge number of people talking about boycotting and canceling Netflix. That lasted about 2 weeks. This was the largest spike that we'd ever seen on canceling Netflix, and it was about 4 times the second place spike as far as canceling. But it has largely returned to normal, and people are sort of kind of over it, I guess, as long as it's not put back in their face. And so I think that Netflix really needs to start churning out new content, put this in the rearview mirror and just get away from it. So far, it looks like they've done a decent job of avoiding catastrophe as far as a big movement of cancellations. But this is something that we're definitely going to be watching. And I don't know if I would poke the bear as far as increasing prices when you're not coming out with new content and you've just upset a lot of people. So a little bit of shaky ground right now on Netflix. And again, I could see a soft quarter coming, but that may be expected by analysts.
Yeah, no, I love the point about you really, it's going to be tough to raise prices when you're kind of in a defensive stance right now, not really playing offense with no new content, a little bit of a PR crisis. But I think the question on that comes down to, did people follow through with what they said they were going to do? Takes a couple seconds to cancel Netflix. Did they do it? We'll find out. But Landon, I have a different kind of question, kind of a long-term prospect of something like Netflix. In a time like right now where there's all these different streaming services, and it's not like legacy cable where you establish a relationship, you sign a contract, and you're basically locked in for a year, 18 months, or 2 years. These are month-to-month, decisions. And if there's no new content and Disney comes out with this new show, I'm more interested in that for the next month. What's to hold me back from pausing or canceling my membership, switching there, switching back? Isn't that a real risk kind of with the business model of some of these companies?
I think so. It really just depends on your demographic that you're talking about. For some people, $8 or $10 a month is not worth even logging in and bothering to cancel if you're going to have to come back. And if you've got a family, somebody in the family probably is going to be upset with you if you cancel Netflix. And so it really just depends on your demographic. I think for the younger group that, the millennial group that may be living on their own and they're the only one and maybe money's a little tighter, sure, that could be a real concern coming in and out of subscriptions like that, especially switching as new content comes out. But I think for the larger majority of Netflix subscribers, I don't see that sort of subscription bouncing around as a main issue. They've got to get people ingrained in loving this idea of sticking on. But you make a great point in that, cable services used to send you a box, and if you didn't send the box back, you had to pay like $150, and you were in a contract for years. The world has changed. It's a streaming service now, and it's just who does it best. Right now, Netflix is the clear leader in streaming, no doubt about that. Long term, we love them. I do expect a little bit of softness on this report. I wish they were trading higher. I'd like to see them at 550 or 560 right now so I could play a little bit of the downside. But then as soon as they do fall off, if they do on this earnings report, I'm back in as a long-term investor.